Welcome once more to this warm morning. I'm sure you had a restful evening, and thank you for keeping up the pace and appearing here on time. So I want to welcome you to this first session today. Over the last 2 days, we've talked a lot about a number of issues, and all this was revolving around the internet. And a number of times there were mentions about ICANN and processes that are happening around ICANN. I don't know, but maybe by a show of hands, how many are hearing about ICANN for the first time from the floor? Or how many have not heard about ICANN before, if I may see? Okay, so looks like I have veterans of the ICANN. The ICANN system on the floor. This today. And this is in regards to a process to transition the stewardship over ICANN from the US government to the multi-stakeholder community. As you know, from inception, ICANN has had a unique relationship with the US government in terms of two important documents. One document was a $0 contract between ICANN and the US government, and two was a document called Affirmation of Commitments. Now, almost 1 year ago, and this came after a long time culminating into the maturity of ICANN and other processes around ICANN, the US government announced its intention to transition the stewardship of ICANN to the global multi-stakeholder community. And for the past actually more than 1 year, since March 2014, this process has been going on. And over the last 2 days, we've been discussing about involvements in various ecosystems, including the WSIS process. Now, this is one of the processes that has witnessed incredible involvement from the community. And the question is, how involved has been the African community? So to take us through this process from inception are two incredible panelists from Africa, our very own, who have really given a lot of their time to represent Africa and to follow each and every step of this process. So they all happen to be on my left. I'll start with Mary. I'm sure she's been introduced too many times, so maybe I don't need to introduce her again. Who does not know Mary here? Only Judy, so they can discuss later. Yeah. So Mary will take us through one element of the transition, and then followed by Tijani. How many don't know Tijani? If I look at his age, I'm sure you must have met him somehow. If not here, then in some other place. I'm not sure, but Tijani is a member of this process, and is also the executive director of the Mediterranean Internet Association. He is the vice chair of the ICANN at Large Advisory Committee, and he is also the member of African Regional at Large organization in ICANN. He does many things. So to make it short, he is also a very important participant in another element of this transition process. So this morning, Tijani and Mary will take us through the current status of where we are and what we need to do. So we'll start with Mary. Oh, we'll start with Tijani. I hope you'll be try to summarize.
I will do, and then you can.
Yeah. So Tijani, please.
Thank you, Bob. In fact, good morning, everyone. And this presentation will be done in 3 parts. First, I will make a small introduction, especially because there are here newcomers that don't know our language of ICANN. So I will try to make it easier for them. And then Mary will make the presentation for the transition. I will make the presentation for the accountability. So, ICANN. ICANN is the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. It is a global multi-stakeholder organization that manages Internet resources for public benefit. It coordinates the top level of the Internet's system of unique identifiers via global multi-stakeholder bottom-up consensus policy processes, with the outcome of those processes implemented via the IANA functions. IANA stands Numbers Authority. What are those stakeholders? We said it is a multi-stakeholder organization. What are the stakeholders of ICANN? There are 3 supporting organizations in charge of proposing policy issues to the ICANN board. Those supporting organizations are the Address Supporting Organization, the ASO, the Generic Names Supporting Organization, the GNSO, the Country Code Names Supporting Organization, the CCNSO. We said 3 supporting organizations and 4 advisory committees, ACs, in charge of providing advices to the ICANN board. Those advisory committees are the Governmental Advisory Committee, the GAC, the At-Large Advisory Committee, the ELAC, the Security and Stability Advisory Committee, the SSAC, and the Root Server System Advisory Committee, the RSAC. What are the IANA functions? They are the protocol parameters function, which consists in the coordination of the assignments of technical internet protocol parameters. The naming function consisting in the administration of certain responsibilities associated with the internet DNS root zone management. And finally, the numbering function, which consists in the allocation of the internet IP addresses. ICANN has been created to operate the IANA functions, and it did through a free of charge contract with the US government since 1998, since its inception. This drawing shows you the IANA and its 3 functions. They are the heart of the internet. On 14th of March, 2014, the US government announced its intent to transition its stewardship on the IANA functions to the global multi-stakeholder community. Since then, the ICANN community has been working in a 2-track parallel process. The first track is about the transition of the stewardship of the 3 IANA functions. And the second track is about enhancing the ICANN accountability. Why we are speaking about accountability while we are about the transition? What is the relationship? It is because since its inception, ICANN has been working under a contract with the US government to ensure the stewardship of the US government on the IANA functions. And when the US government decided to transition this stewardship to the ICANN community, there is no mechanisms, accountability mechanisms, that permit to the community to make ICANN accountable to it. And that's why we have to address also the ICANN accountability track. I will stop here and give the floor to Mary to address the first track, which is the transition of the stewardship. Thank you.
I need the technicians, please. I need to load my pro. Can you load it?
Please send all your presentation for the website, please.
This one. Yes. Okay, there are two things you're opening for me. Okay. So. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome again to this dialogue. And Tijani has set the tone. What I just need to do is to tell you what the transition is all about. US government has oversight role over the IANA function, which ICANN does under contract, which Tijani has given to us. And the IANA functions, as I projected, there are three main functions and an extra one. And I use my own CCTLD as the .ng to show it. But I want us to know that there are three databases that the IANA works on. One registry for the protocol, the engineering, those that set the standard. When standard is set by the community, IANA registers it. It's called Internet Protocol parameters. So who are the people in charge of that? Is the IETF, Internet Engineering Task Force. Who are they? They are the engineers here, and most of you are engineers. So the standard of how the protocol works, the internet works, that's what they do. Then there is the DNS. The DNS is where the naming functions, the naming programs, the CCTLDs, the .ng, the .com, the .net, the .appa, all the dots, everything about it. When there are changes to be made, the IANA function is where that resides. That's the database. The third one is the addressing. In Africa, the addressing sector for us, or addressing community, is the AfriNIC. That's where we get our IP addresses. So there are three regional IP address registry. So those are the three functions, the three databases, the three, operations of the IANA function. So Tijani talked about multi-stakeholder. When you talk about multi-stakeholder in ICANN, you are looking at the small businesses, the technical community, the civil society, the government, the researchers, the end users. So US government is saying, look, Since we have been overseeing through the contract we had with ICANN, we want to remove our oversight role. And we want to give it to these people that I've shown here, these communities, the large and small business users, myself as a user, the technical community, the IETF, those that draw up the technical, the civil society, the journalists, the government, my own government, your own government, the researchers and the academics, those in the academia, and the ordinary student on the street that uses the internet. So these are the people that should govern or should oversight or have oversight role over what, and ICANN should be accountable to this group. How is it going to be done? That is what ICANN has been bothering itself or had been doing to make sure they meet their conditionalities that the US government gave, that it shouldn't be an intergovernmental, no intergovernmental organization that should take it over. No one stakeholder should have upper hand than the other one. All of us should be the people that ICANN should be accountable to. Okay, so that's what. So ICG, please forget about the acronym, all those things that are outside the cycle. I just want you to look inside the cycle and see what the Internet Coordination, Stewardship Coordination Group, which I belong to, that is the transition group, what we do. Now, I've told you 3 communities, the IETF, the IRS, okay, oh, sorry, let me, the engineering group or the community, the IP community, and then the DNS community, the .coms and the .ngs community. So these 3 communities, they were asked to bring a proposal how US government can hand over the oversight to us. So each community will say, this is what IANA does for me. This is the way I want it arranged so that IANA, I will now know what IANA is doing for me, each of the communities. So now this group, this ICG was formed to coordinate, liaise, assess, assemble, inform. The ICG does not develop proposals. The proposals are developed by each of the communities. The naming community, the number community, where is the IP, the internet protocol, that's the engineering or standard setting community. So those ones are all part of the IANA function operators. So the communities. So this is what we do here and there. So now the transition proposal is in this form. If I say RIR, I mean the protocol community, IP addressing community. If I say IETF community, I mean those that send the standard. Then I said the naming community. The naming community are the DNS industry community. So each of these communities were asked to go develop their proposal, bring it together, that the ICG will assemble it together and send to US government. If US government approves it, then the oversight, the last dot, the last ticking of any IANA function will now reside with the communities and no more with the US government, so that the clamor for one government taking charge would die down. You remember the Sweden revelation and all the rest of the things that happened, and the clamor. And what brought about internet governance is the fact that people are saying, why should it be US government only that will take authority or supervision of the IANA function? So what are the steps we are taking? Individual proposal assessment. When each of the communities are proposed what they want to do and how they want to supervise the work, how the work of the IANA will affect them, and changes they would like to see happen. We'll look at whether it is complete, whether it is clear, whether it meets NTIA criteria, whether community comments are accommodated, because it must be stakeholder, everybody must have a say. then whether there was consensus that was reached or not, whether we achieved consensus, whether it was inclusive. Were you given opportunity to comment? Was the student on the street given opportunity to comment? So it's a very, very open process. It's very tedious. It's very complicated. If you have not been there, there is a voluminous work to do and to read. But the simple thing is that US government is stepping aside and saying, communities, the users, the maintainers, the business people, please take over. Make sure that the thing is functioning well. That is what the essence of it. So it's just, let's put all the proposal together and give to US government. Okay, when the thing is unified, we look at whether it's compatible and interoperability. Compatibility and interoperability, we look at that. Is it compatible? Can it interoperate? Are there gaps and overlaps? Accountability. Accountability, Tijani is going to talk to us about accountability because the US government is saying that ICANN must be accountable and there must be a strong mechanism for accountability before we can step aside and allow the community to continue the oversight. So those are the things that ICG will look at. Where are we now? To finalize, there's a public comment. It ends today. The public comment ends today. And it's today by 23:59 UTC. We'll do the review. ICG will review the comments. And if there are changes, we return back to the community and say, look, make some changes so that this thing will work. The way you have stated it, it might not work. And then we'll now do submission. So it goes from the ICG gathering and we'll now go to ICANN and give it to ICANN board. ICANN board will take it to NTIA. But if they've done that, it is not yet to Huru until the Congress, the US Congress has seen it and approved it. So the final thing will be this. There are 3 phases we are looking at. Phase 1, community proposal. We have gathered the community proposals. Phase 2 is NTIA review. So by the time we submit this proposal, NTIA will review it. Phase 3 will be the transfer of stewardship. But under phase 2, it takes about 4 months for the 4 legislative months. The US government will review it and they are satisfied that the proposal we have brought, that they can conveniently and confidently step aside and knowing that there's a strong mechanism to be able to allow ICANN, the community, to supervise what the IANA function authority is doing. So then the last stage will be the transfer. So if the US government approves it, then it will be transferred. And the target is by 2016 that it will happen. And if it doesn't happen in 2016, we may start up a new debate, but we are hoping that it will happen. I don't know whether I've confused you or I have improved your knowledge of what is happening in the IANA transition, but we are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. Hopefully by the time we get to questions, you'll understand whether you are confusing us or not. So I'll give Tijani to also take us very briefly through the accountability track. Meanwhile, you can jot down your questions and then we take them all together. Tijani.
Okay. So thank you, Bob. Thank you, Mary. I will come back to the enhancing ICANN accountability. So I told you about the CCWG, the Cross-Community Working Group on Enhancing ICANN Accountability. This working group has split its work in two working streams. Work stream 1 will deal with the mechanisms, with the accountability mechanisms necessary for the transition, and work stream 2 for the other mechanisms. The CCWG issued its second report that is now under public comment. My presentation will be about this report. So the CCWG started by identifying the main elements of the accountability, of the ICANN accountability, and they are the principles of ICANN, the board of ICANN, the community of ICANN, and the independent appeal mechanisms. Let's start by the principles. As you know, the bylaws are the heart of the accountability. They contain the mission statement that describes the scope of the ICANN activities, the core values that guide the decisions and actions of ICANN, and the affirmation of commitments that requires a periodic review process conducted by the community that results in recommendations for improvement mechanisms. The CCWG proposes to split the bylaws of ICANN into fundamental bylaws and standard bylaws. The fundamental bylaws will have more restrictions to be modified. They should contain the mission, commitment, and the core values, the framework for the independent review process, the proposed community powers, and finally, the accountability mechanisms necessary for the new IANA structures. What are the community powers proposed by the CCWG? They are first, the reconsideration or the rejection of the budget after its approval by the ICANN board. And the same thing for the strategic plan and for the operating plan. It is also about reconsider and reject any change to the ICANN standard bylaw. Also, it is to approve changes of the fundamental bylaw, means that the fundamental bylaws will not be changed, or anything cannot be changed unless the community agree on it. Remove individual ICANN board members, and finally recall the entire ICANN board. As you see here, they are very big sticks that the community want to have for the board, for the ICANN board. Those are powers that are not agreed by everyone. Inside the CCWG, we are very diverse. We come from different perspectives. We have different interests. You understand that the DNS industry have their interests, which is more financial than other thing. We understand that the governments have their political interests, and you understand that the end users or the civil society have the interest. The only interest they have is the public interest. So inside the working group, it was not easy to come up with those results. And one of the more, if you want, controversial points for us as end users is the veto of the budget. As you know, the internet is now our life. We cannot live without the internet. And the internet shouldn't stop at under any condition. And ICANN is the organization that is operating the internet. If you veto the budget after it was approved by the board, and the board approved the budget at the very end of the fiscal year, that means that you will start a new year without budget. And this may destabilize ICANN. That's why we as end users, we find it very harmful for the organization. And, but the majority of the working group members wanted it to be like this. The second very controversial point for us, especially the end users from Africa, the AFRA law, is the removal of the individual ICANN board members. The proposal wants it to be the SO that appoint the director who has the sole right to remove him, and with no cause. This is for us unacceptable, because this will make the board members focus more on the narrow interest of this SO or this AC, more than the interest of the global ICANN, the global organization, and more than the public interest. And this is something harmful for ICANN. We don't see it helpful, especially because it is without cause. That means that I don't like you, I want you to go. This is something that for us, it is not acceptable. And inside the working group, we fight it very hard. And we finally got a mechanism that will perhaps make it less harmful. The creation of the community forum, where the community forum doesn't have any decision-making power, but it is a forum for discussion inside the whole community. And any removal of director cannot happen before a discussion happen inside this forum, and before the SO or AC who wants to remove the director come there and say why they want to remove him. And it will be also an opportunity for the director, for the design director, to come in the forum and defend himself. This make the harm less harmful. So those are the powers. How those powers will be exercised? They will be exercised through a governance model, and the CCWG contemplated many corporate structures for organizing the community to have enforceable powers. And at the end, they found that the sole member model is the best one. In this model, the SOs and ACs participate jointly to exercise their community powers as the sole member of ICANN. So ICANN will change from a non-member corporation to a sole member corporation. This drawing shows you the difference between the current situation and the proposed situation. And the current situation, as you see, the community appoint the board directors. They send to they give to the board advices through the ACs. They give them the policy issues through the SOs, and the board make decisions and take actions. But if the community is not happy with those actions or those decisions, they have no recourse. In the proposed model, we keep almost the same thing, but if the community is not happy with the decision or the action, they have the community mechanism that will allow them to exercise their power and to make the board hear them. So in this model, the CCWG proposed that the weight in the decision making will be spread as follows: 5 votes for each of the GNSO, the CCNSO, the ASO, the ALAC, and the GAC, and 2 votes for each of the SSAC and RSAC. If you want, I can explain you why, but the time will not permit it. Also, another thing, this model will not permit that the SOs and the SCs constitute a council or something like this where they meet and where they decide. They will decide inside their structures. The vote will happen inside the SOs and inside the SCs, and the sum of those votes will constitute the sole member vote. So we spoke about the powers, we spoke about the model, the governance model through which those power will be exercised. And now we will speak about the tool to exercise those power, which is the appeal mechanisms. We have two appeal mechanisms that exist now, but the CCWG propose to improve those processes. The first one is the independent review process. In this process, any person or entity affected by an ICANN action or inaction in breach of the ICANN bylaws or articles may request an independent third-party review of the action. The improvement we are proposing is to make it to hire a standing panel of 7 people. Before, when you have a dispute, when you have a problem, you hire the panel. It is not permanent, it is not standing. Now we propose to have a standing panel of 7 members to play the full independent dispute resolution function. And from those 7 members, for each dispute, we draw 3 persons, which is the review panel. And those 3 persons are chosen by the 2 parties of the dispute. The second appeal mechanism is the request for the consideration process. Any person or entity affected by the ICANN action or inaction may request review or reconsideration of that action by the board. The improvement we are proposing is to expand the scope of this process to include the board and the staff action or inaction that conflict with the ICANN mission, commitment, or core value. We also propose to extend the time for filing a request from 15 days to 30 days. And we propose that the party who make the determinations will be the board and not the board governance committee. We spoke about the powers, the governance model that will allow to exercise those powers, the tool to exercise those powers. If there is a problem, even if we use these tools, these appeal mechanisms, and we cannot make the board accountable to the community, we can escalate it to the court, to the California jurisdiction courts. Now we'll speak about the consequence of those mechanisms. As I said, ICANN should be always working. We have to be very to care about the stability of ICANN. And the exercise of those mechanisms, accountability mechanisms, may affect the stability of ICANN. That's why we made those stress tests. We will test those mechanisms and see how it will work. So the stress tests are to test the ICANN stability in the event of consequences or vulnerabilities brought by the exercise of the proposed accountability mechanisms. Applying stress tests will identify the changes to the ICANN bylaws that might be necessary to ensure that the proposed accountability mechanisms are adequate for the ICANN security and stability. All what I spoke about now is in the workstream 1 before the transition, but we didn't work the workstream 2, but we have already identified some elements of the workstream 2. Those elements are refining the operational details of the workstream 1 proposal, further consideration of the government participation. This is an issue that I can explain you if you ask me, but it will take time. The third one, considering the issues of jurisdiction. Also during our discussion, people raised the issue of jurisdiction. They said, why we are always considering only the California jurisdiction? Why don't we think about other jurisdiction? And we oppose. I personally opposed to this thing, because I think that our mission is to find the accountability mechanism that will make ICANN accountable to the community. This issue of the jurisdiction can be discussed after, because if we discuss it now, we may delay the transition. So that's why we put it in workstream 2. And also the enhancement of the SO and AC accountability. As you have remarked, we are speaking about the accountability of ICANN to the community. But what about the accountability of the community itself? We will discuss it in the workstream 2. Other elements of workstream 2, the institution of the culture of transparency within the ICANN organization. Also, all aspects of diversity at all levels of the organization. And finally, defining how ICANN, within its mission, may integrate human rights impact analysis. All these accountability mechanisms, new or enhanced, related to workstream 1 must be implemented or committed to before transition of the IANA stewardship from NTIA can occur. The CCWG will address the accountability mechanisms related to workstream 2 that are not necessary for the transition to happen, together with the workstream 1 implementation issues as soon as the workstream 2, the workstream 1 final proposal is approved by the chartering organization. The transition of the IANA function stewardship from the US government to the multi-stakeholder community would reshape the governance of the Internet unique identifiers. If well succeeded, the multi-stakeholder model will gain more credibility and may be extended to other environments. If not, it will send a very bad message that this governance model is not workable. Thank you. Last word, as I told you, this proposal is under public comment. The deadline for the public comment for the accountability is on 12 September, a few days. So please read the report and comment. You have the link to the public comment. If I know you will not take it now, but go to the Google, you Google it, you will find it, and please read it and comment. As Afralo have already commented, it is perhaps the only voice from Africa. We need Africa to express their concerns, their point of view. So please go and comment. If you have questions, you can email acct-staff@icann.org. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tijani. I think it tried to be as simple as possible and as slow as possible so that we understand what he was trying to talk about. So I want to start with a set of 5 questions, starting from this side, then I come to this side. Very fast, then we conclude. So we'll go fast, this side. I'm seeing one. Jimson, who else from this side? Okay, so Jimson is representing the men on this side, is representing the ladies on this side. Okay, then I'm seeing 2 on my left. So Jimson, please proceed.
Thank you very much, distinguished chair and great panelists. I have 1 comment and 2 quick questions. Really, first to thank Mary Uduma and Tijani for their great work. We commend and salute what you are doing. When you say that there is a lot of work there, I know very well, I feel it. So I will say that, I want to say that this IANA transition process is a collective responsibility. And yesterday, someone said that it's the private sector that is, the business that is controlling it in a way. Is not true. Even though they said private sector led, it just simply means government is not leading it. Like Tijani is a user, Mary is CCTLD. So, you know, that, and they are representing us, but at the same time, they are not representing, or they are not in my business constituency, but they are representing me. So, and I'm happy with what they are doing. So we need to understand that in ICANN, there is a balanced ecosystem, and there's opportunity for everybody to speak out. having said that, then I'll move to the questions. I want to ask Tijani, what is the status, Mary can also come in, what is the status of GAC's interest in sitting on the board? I know you've said something about it, but I want it re-emphasized. What is the status of GAC interest in sitting on the board so that it can also influence directly what's going on? And two, if one observes the ICG, you see that the government have more representatives. So why is it that government have more representation in ICG above other stakeholder group?
Thanks, Jimson. We'll go to yes, the one in front and then behind this.
Thank you, panelists, for your insightful discussions or presentations. I just would like to ask 2 or 3 specific questions regarding the ICANN and the transition issue. One, what is the relationship between the...
Yeah, please introduce yourself.
Excuse me?
Please introduce yourself.
Okay, sorry. My name is Haile from Ethiopia. Then I go to my first question directly because I have already explained what my intention is. What's the relationship between the IANA transition and the ICANN accountability? Do you mean that ICANN is going to be in charge of those IANA transitions once the US government transitioned the oversight role? My second question is regarding the voting weight. The GAC is like given the same weight with some other technical or non-governmental actors, while governments are mostly, they have the most public policy issues, but they are given the same responsibility with technical communities. Third, does this approval or change of the ICANN bylaws include just making the ICANN administered by international law? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, last one for this session.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm Sami Saleh. I'm from the Sudanese Research and Education Network, an NGO for providing ICT to Sudanese universities. I'm from Sudan. So I'm very happy to hear that we are all know and confirm that internet is now managed and controlled by a single administration. And I can see how proud are you when you're telling us that the USG, the United States government, want to waive its oversight on the internet, and the Congress agreed, the US Congress agreed to transit the control and what's called multi-stakeholders, which for me it's a very foggy model. Let us be honest, the successful of the internet is because of the oversight of the United States government. Any model without a supervision from a root organization will fail, and the US know that very well. So I believe this long process to transit the stewardship of the internet and the IANA function is not real, and I'm sure that the proposal will never, ever, and without any chance, will pass the second phase. I mean the US Congress approval. Dear brother, the USG will use this experience to show us that the internet will not survive without their direct control. For me, I think internet as a global network can be managed and supervised by a single global, well-accredited and accepted organization by all people. This is simply the UN. The ITU as the UN agency successfully control and manipulate the telecommunication resources. I mean the radio frequencies, the spectrum, country code numbers, and the telecom standards, which are the same as the internet critical resources. Why we didn't transit the internet oversight to a UN agency? Thank you.
Thank you. Time is really done. So very quick interventions, please. Questions, very quick ones.
Thank you. Olga Tafag. I have a question from a remote participant, Daniel Nangaka from ISOC, Uganda. So Daniel wants to know what is the status of civil society organizations' participation in the IANA transition. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Respond to that, yes.
Thank you very much. This is Gaël Fall. I'm with Afrinic. Actually, I wanted to know what would be the worst case scenario in regards to the transition of the stewardship of the IANA functions. As we currently know, the United States of America is going to go through a change of administration. There's going to be a change in the administration, in the executive office, meaning that there's going to be a change, a new vote of president. So what is the worst case scenario if the Congress does not pass the bill to allow the oversight to be going to the community? I don't think that has been stated. Thank you.
Thanks, Gabriel. Barak, it has to be a sentence, please.
Chair, I cannot summarize what I want to say in a sentence. If I may request 2 minutes just to make a quick suggestion. Thank you, Mary is supporting it. So I'm just speaking as an observer to the process, and I want to first commend Tijani and Mary for leading our region in this process. Secondly, I beg that we support this initiative. The reason I'm saying we support this initiative is the internet has reached where it is because of goodwill from different stakeholders in the international community. And I don't think the US government had any obligation to initiate this process in the first place. So it was a gesture of goodwill, in my humble opinion. And I beg that we look at it from that perspective as a gesture of goodwill, because in any case, the internet has been working fine, depending on how you define what fine means. That said, I want to support the suggestion that proposes the formation of the PTI, the post-IANA transition organization. And the reason I'm saying this is I'm looking at how the Internet Society manages the .org under the Public Interest Registry. You notice that ISOC has a specific mandate as an organization, and whereas it won the bid to run .org, it decided to create a separate organization that focuses on running the registry on its behalf, in which the Internet Society is a sole member and oversees the function of the board of this organization. So in the same way, I would suggest that since the NTIA is transitioning the oversight function of IANA to the global internet community, then the global internet community forms an organization that will focus on managing the IANA function, and then the global internet community identifies a way of forming a board that will provide oversight over this particular organization. And there have been some suggestions of a customer standing committee, which I hope Tijani and Mary will talk about, the IANA Functions Review Committee. Probably we can use this as channels for identifying board members who will sit on this organization on behalf of the global internet community to manage the IANA functions. But otherwise, I suggest that let us not come up with a structure that will destabilize how the internet is evolving. Thank you.
Thank you, Barak. So I'll give my panelists opportunity to respond to any of the questions. So you also make your final remarks. So I'll start with Mary.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Jimson. And I like the statement that I am from CCTLD and Tijani is from the user community. So I'm like on operating community. So, and my operating community as CCTLD, I have oversight of my government over what I do, okay? But because of the way the internet has been arranged, we find out that if we continue with the one internet, we need this one coordination. We need this one, everybody taking part. And for that, the government, why is government more in ICG? Because we're looking at the three continents of three recognized ICANN continents. So, I mean 5, sorry, not 3, 5. So in order that we'll have proper representation, and in government, no one government will speak for the other in GAG. So, but it was decided that instead of just taking 2 people from GAG or 3 people from GAG to come to ICG, it's better the regional representation is taken into consideration for each of the governments. So each block, they go back and discuss and come back. So the region, the North region, the South region, all the regions, none of the other regions can speak for the other region. So that's why we had more GAG representatives in ICG. And again, you know, government oversees whatever every other stakeholder does in your region or in your country. Just as I said, my CCTLD, I have oversight. So even if I'm speaking, there will be still something I'm thinking about. There will be the foreign sovereignty issues that I will consider if I'm making my comment. So that's why we gave more government seats, just to represent the 5 regions and let the government have. It doesn't mean that government, and 5 against 30, okay? Or 5 against 25, because we're about 30. Okay, so that's, I've answered that one. Tijani will take voting, I don't know. Change in ICANN by law, Tijani will take that one. Congress, US Congress, you know, is something that the US started. And just like Baraka said, it's out of their own goodwill, they are saying, look, community, global community, since internet affects everything we do today, let it not just be, don't just say it's US government. And I don't, well, from my own perspective, I don't think they want to bring that goodwill they started. And it's just left for us to support also that goodwill and see, let this be the first phase, as I said. There will be a second phase, it will continue to evolve until we get to that point. But if we want to fight it at this moment, we'll have a lot of resistance. Can we support the thing and allow US government to sit back and see how the international community will go? Now, somebody from Sudan, I want to join it with the guy from Sudan. The truth is that internet is a monster. Internet is like an elephant. You touch this side, you think we are talking about government. You touch another side, you think you are talking about the user. You touch another side. So it's a multi-stakeholder issue. It's not one, you can't use a treaty to solve internet. The people have invested money in internet and we are reaping from it, even though we have the flip side of it. So it is not one stakeholder that can control the internet. It is something, it's a big democracy. That is the highest democracy we have in this world, where everybody has every right to say anything and be heard and your views be taken into consideration. So we can't leave it at the UN or the ITU. So it goes beyond that. There are little chunks. That's why we have the IGF. So it's a place we go to discuss, and we go back to our constituencies to see how is internet affecting what I do. or what my community do, or what my community does, or what my stakeholding community does. So it is not, it cannot be one. Well, it can be government, it can be United States, it can be UN, it cannot be ITU. It can only involve everybody that is a stakeholder in your own role contributing. All right. So that's my answer to that. I like the suggestion from Barack, and there's something I want to show up while Tijani is taking the other questions. The monster that somebody referred to it as monster, but something that is being proposed. Pictorially, you will see it. Thank you.
Okay, so I will try to answer some questions, beginning by Gibson. The GAC and the board. The GAC is not interested to be on the board. They have a liaison to the board, but they don't have a voting member in the board. And they are not interested to have a board member. Going now to the questions of our Ethiopian friend. What is the relationship between the transition and the ICANN accountability? I explained it at the beginning. From the inception of ICANN until now, ICANN is working under a contract with the US government and have the stewardship of the US government. ICANN is accountable to the US government through this contract. When the transition will happen, this contract will finish. There will not be any contract. And the party which will replace the US government will be the community. So far, there is no mechanisms for accountability for the ICANN to the community. That's why we need to set those mechanisms before the transition happen, so that the day of the transition, we will have a replacement for the US government with the adequate accountability mechanisms. First question. Second question, voting weight. You said that the government have more responsibilities, etc., etc. So they have to have more weight in the voting system. It is at the contrary. Because in ICANN, as you have remarked, the government have an advisory committee. They have only the right to advise. They don't decide. Because the governments are part of the community, that's all. This is the multi-stakeholder system. No stakeholder have more power or more weight than the other stakeholder. So we have supporting organizations that they are developing policies, and we have advisory committee that are advising the ICANN board. And we as end users, we are advisory committee, and the governments are also advisory committee. So the GAC has an advantage. They are a special advisory committee because they have, in some cases, their advice is more or less binding for the board. And one example of that for the new GTLDs, if there is two applicants for the same name, and if this name is a geographic name, the GAC can advise the board and say this name, this string should be given to the community, to the geographic community, and not to the commercial applicant. And the board is obliged to hear them. While we, our advisors, they can hear to us, they can ignore us. So with this particular position of the GAC, and with the voting power, 5 votes, exactly as the other SOs and as ELAC, is too much for the GAC. It will give the governments more power. And this is what I said in the workstream 2, reconsideration of the government participation. The US government said when they announced their intention to transition the stewardship to the community, they said one of the conditions is not to replace the US government by another government or by an intergovernmental body. They don't want to give the government more power in ICANN. This is not because the government are not stakeholders. They are stakeholders, but they don't have the same power as the others. Second point. The third point, shall we use the international law? This is what I spoke about that. This is the jurisdiction. This issue was raised inside the group, but we refused to continue to discuss it because we are about setting accountability mechanisms and not discussing the jurisdiction. We put it in work stream 2, and it will be discussed after the transition. Now, coming to SEMI, I want to add 2 words to what Mary said. Why the internet is not like the telecommunication networks? Because the internet is now part of our life. The internet hasn't to stop under any condition, never stop. And internet is a global network, one single network, while the telecommunication network are several networks. They can be interconnected, they can be not interconnected. If you give the stewardship, or no, if you give, yes, the control of the internet to an intergovernmental body, it will be subject to the political problems. And it may cause instability of ICANN. Also, inside one country, if the internet is controlled by the intergovernmental body, they may oblige the intergovernmental body to do something which is not in the interest of the user. So that's why internet is very special. It must be something global, something independent. We are very happy that the US government decided to give up and to give it to the community, because we don't want the governments to be involved, to control it. ICANN shouldn't be controlled at all. ICANN is a mean of freedom, a mean of how to say, possibility of anyone to express himself. Because anyone, as you know, anyone can put what they want on the internet, and any information can flow, and there shouldn't be any break to that. Yes, Gael, the worst case scenario. I don't agree with you. I will tell you something. This stewardship transition, I don't agree with Barak and what he said. The stewardship transition was more or less initiated by the Snowden revelations. Even if I want it to be very clear, what Snowden said doesn't have anything to do with ICANN. ICANN is not about content. ICANN is about names and numbers. And ICANN doesn't control anything and cannot support the surveillance that Snowden spoke about. But this issue of surveillance made the world very worried about the oversight or the control of ICANN, of the US government, and the way they are capturing their information and their communications. And this made, for example, the German Angela Merkel, they make her tell to their companies never make any data storage in US with the US companies. And this made the US companies complain to the commerce department in the US. And that's why the US government wanted to depress to give more confidence to people, and decided to make this declaration. And I think that this will be done with under any administration. Even if the administration will change, it is the interest of the United States of America. It is their interest to make this transition. And it may be important to notice here is that we will have the discussion in the UN about the internet governance. And if this transition will not be successful, it may affect the decision about the internet governance of the UN. So I do hope, and I think that this transition will happen and will be successful. We have all to work for it. That's why I asked you to comment on the reports. It's your voice, and every voice is heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Tijani. Unfortunately, for Mary, okay.
The 1 minute I want to give. Now. The 1 minute I want to give is what I've showed on the board on the projected. This is combined proposal. What is going to be sent to the U.S. government? Now you can see this is ICANN here, and there's a new proposal that is called post-ICANN, post-IANA transition, and the oversight will be done by this one and this one. So it's not ICANN only that is doing the oversight. There's another oversight that will be done by the protocol, the IP addressing organization. Another oversight is done by the standard organization. So it will not just be ICANN, and it's not just one stakeholder. So we are looking at multi-stakeholder and everybody getting involved. At the end of the day, if there's any problem, who would solve the problem? These extra oversight here, oversight here, oversight here, oversight here. Yeah, the government. Okay, you are asking for government is here. Government is part of ICANN community. Government is part of ICANN community. And is this community that is proposing this new organization that will be IANA function operator? Yeah, GAG is inside here. GAG is inside here. Okay, GAG is inside here. Okay, did you say where? So it's inside ICANN. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mary. So after this transition, then all governments now only participate under the GAG. And I think to just reiterate what Tijani says for Gael, I think the challenge for us is to do our part and to ensure that we meet the 4 principles that were outlined by the US government. If we fail, then we should not blame another party for our failure. So I think it's on the community to ensure that our proposal meets the principle. Unfortunately, I am completely out of time. Please interact with my panelists and myself for any details on the overall proposal, accountability, and both processes. Thank you very much, and a big round of applause, please, for my panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, and your panel. Thank you very much. Our next presentation